Welcome everyone to today's session on digital transformation for remote workers. My name is Michael Seychelles. I'm the VP of Sales for Fleet Complete Australia. Today I have the pleasure of being joined by Joe Houlihan, who's the CEO of JESI Journey Management Solutions, and Terry Sanders of Easternwell, who's also a customer of JESI and Fleet Complete. For those of you who may not be familiar with Fleet Complete, we are a leading global provider of connected vehicle technology. Or more simply, we provide visibility and control over all our customers' vehicles, assets, and mobile workers on one single interface. We service approximately 600,000 subscribers globally, which comprise of over 40,000 businesses and government organisations throughout Canada, the US, Mexico, Australia, and a large part of Europe. Our local Australian team is based out of Adelaide, and we have staff representation across all major capital cities. Fleet Complete have partnered with JESI to strengthen our lone worker duty of care with JESI's market-leading innovative software solution. Combined with Fleet Complete's vehicle tracking software, we are now able to offer a complete journey management solution for our customers to manage the safety of their remote workers. JESI provides an extension of the telematics that we provide, and we believe are the best partner in journey management for our customers. So now I'm just going to hand over to Joe Houlihan, who's going to introduce our special guest for today.
Thanks, Michael. Really honoured to have Terry Sanders here from Easternwell. Terry has over 12 years' experience in the resources sector across many ranges of Australia. The diversity of Terry's career has created a leader who has knowledge, skills, and provides strategic and commercial oversight to a business and the ability to streamline operations to reduce wastage of resources. Terry's previous roles have included health and safety environmental managers roles, as well as operations-based roles within Easternwell. Appointed as contract manager, operations, Easternwell camp management in its inception in 2017, Terry has been a driving force behind the operations with Santos, Beach Energy, THC Helicopters, and BHP. As a successful team at Easternwell, the business unit has now expanded to include broad spectrum village services. Easternwell has a partnership with JESI for nearly 5 years now. It's been an instrumental partner in developing the risk assessment tools that we have. He's a continued and extremely valued partner to provide critical feedback and strategic vision in continuous improvement and the management of risk of mobile workers. Privileged to have Terry as a guest speaker today and looking forward to hearing his presentation on how we're using technology to solve a significant problem, managing high-risk journeys, and what the real competitive edge and advantage is and the other value adds of the proposition. So welcome, Terry. We got here eventually. Over to you. Look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks very much, Joe. Appreciate that. Look, thank you very much, everyone, for the opportunity to come in and have a chat to you all today. Just talking around that digital transformation for remote workers and connecting technology for a competitive advantage. I guess I should start by introducing who we are at Easternwell. Predominantly, we're a drilling company which operates in the oil and gas industry. And in the years leading up to about 2006, 2007, we operated internally ourselves a camp management business. Now, that camp management business came out as a fledgling company on its own and offers accommodation services to our FIFO workers, providing catering, housekeeping, facilities, maintenance. The company itself commenced in 1946 as Gorey and Coal, was purchased by Transfield Services in 1956 and rebranded to Broad Spectrum in 2015. And recently we've had a few sales go through our business, so we've been owned by Ferrovial Services up until this year, and then now we are owned by Ventia Group. So our operations, we're located around remote areas in Queensland, South Australia and Western Australia, and employ approximately 1,500 people across drilling and accommodation services. Yes, we look at the challenges that come with being a remote workforce, and we had to ask ourselves why we needed some sort of journey management tool. Driving for a long time has been considered our highest risk activity for our workforce. A lot of our drivers working in remote areas are required to travel long distances on rural and remote roads. We came up with a bit of an issue many years ago, and in a couple of situations where two fatigued drivers in separate situations had actually left the road with their vehicles due to fatigue while they were driving. One of those ended up in a quite serious situation where the vehicle was turned over onto its roof. And we have decided since that point that something had to change within our business. We had to understand better the profile of what our drivers were doing and when they were doing their tasks. So based on that, we made some changes, some assessments, created a risk assessment tool for ourselves. And we put that risk assessment tool into place. We first introduced a paper-based journey management procedure that was administered and managed in-house. That paper assessment took into consideration the time that person had been awake, the time that person would be driving on the road conditions, and their experience as a driver working with our company. We did find that the risks surrounding this gave us an oversight over check-ins. We had lots of manual entry points and reminders to ensure our journeys were completed. We also had a very big administration process with that paper-based system. So we made a general decision to move ourselves from that paper base to a call centre, which we managed in-house for a short period of time. We moved that to a national call centre as part of our parent company's group. While we were going through that, we found that we had a lot of experience of, a lot of connection points there with personal phone calls being made to help with that assessment process. We soon realised that it was also quite a laborious and quite an expensive requirement for us to be able to manage that journey assessment tool. So as that administration grew and we had more and more drivers out in the field, we realised we needed to make some changes. We took ourselves in and have a conversation with JESI in regards to that one. When we started with JESI, we had that requirement not just to be a journey management process, but also to be a journey assessment tool attached to it. So while we could manage those journeys, we also had to manage the risks associated with those journeys as well. So we rolled out an online risk assessment process with the JESI tool. Over the course of that being rolled out over the last 5 years, we have found ourselves to get everybody on board using their smartphones before they take their journeys. Our employees and staff quite readily have taken it up over the course of those years until up this point where it's now just part of what we normally do. Okay, look, the competitive advantage. So we were looking for a competitive advantage when it came to implementing the journey management system. By moving from our call centre, national call centre process to the online program with JESI, we found ourselves a 70% cost reduction straight away, purely from removing some of our administration and burden. We also found ourselves having a higher compliance and safety improvements within that process. The actual process itself, now being online, was actually a simpler process for the user that you have. As we had the phone calls previously, which required a 2-up or 1-up manager approval, the time frame you could be on a phone call waiting for that approval to happen when you could be on the road was a little bit longer than what it could be. And by moving to an online process, that simplified and improved that process. We also find that having some safer together driving requirements in what we do with the oil and gas industry here in Queensland and similar rulings out in other places in which we're working, we have some standard processes that we have to be following through just to conduct ourselves in those industries. We found ourselves with an automated escalation of the risk assessments and an automated escalation of deviations from original journey plan. These are the things we'd like to see across our business to help us get a better competitive advantage going forward. So the increase in productivity, we're not waiting for calls and text messages to be responded to. We've actually seen that there's a cultural shift within our drivers in our workforce. The culture and behaviours of those drivers have changed in the way we talk about how we drive in the field and the way we actually conduct ourselves in the field while we're driving for work. Very much has improved. There's been a definite change in the mindset about thinking what journeys are high risk. So there are people now who would previously had taken journeys which they thought were necessary. We now know that because those questions are being asked, those risks are too great and we'll replan that journey so that somebody else is taking the journey or that's not taken at all. So they're self-managing their own fatigue factors. And there's definitely been, in the last 5 years, a reduction in the number of escalations. Now, we've seen that to be quite current since we put this risk assessment tool in place. Once we started assessing the journeys we were making, we saw a definite reduction in the need for escalations as we were self-managing from a trip-by-trip basis. I guess what we have been talking about recently is that this integration of our in-vehicle monitoring systems and our journey management program. The IVMS, as we call it, and the JESI integration brings along journey management and vehicle tracking together in a centralised dashboard, enabling complete visibility over our entire workforce. And it links up our risk assessment controls to our in-vehicle monitoring systems. So this way we can use real-time alerts and rapid communication for critical events impacting remote worker safety. The JESI remote worker part of our app, our mobile technology, includes that journey management, lone worker, working on site, and risk assessment features that can be linked to workflow approval processes. I guess when we're looking for why we'd like to see these both being brought together, there's more competitive advantages, again, having these two systems in place. We're linking our response times when there's an emergency that has been initiated. We find that there's potential to cross-reference between identified risks using trip risk assessment tools with real-time control measures using our in-vehicle monitoring systems. We identify the drivers who are not completing trip risk assessments for journeys that are within our risk criteria, and we can improve that compliance to our criteria, to doing those risk assessments. We can improve efficiencies in planning with our workforce allocation to and from locations. So we are looking at using these tools to create sort of an Uberization of our work fleet. So any vehicles and people movements can also be the most efficient as possible. Then we're looking at the data analytics out of this. By having the two systems linked together, we are going to see some cost reductions, purely based on the fact that we're looking at reducing our kilometres in the road, purely based on the fact that our fuel consumption will reduce because of those kilometres being down, and reduction in our emissions. Should see us with some definite advantages in our maintenance and repair schedules, as all when we were using any in-vehicle monitoring system, I guess. We're going to see some efficiencies there, but by using the two together, when we have the best drivers and the best assets working in the field, those maintenance and repair costs will be reduced. This has been proven before with what we've seen with the IMS systems when they first were implemented over many years ago, and we're seeing that now with our driver management as well at the moment. There's a paper reduction just purely based on the fact that there's a system in place. We don't need to see more paper being spread between one site to another site. So having something online and cloud-based is obviously going to reduce that footprint for us. We see productivity improvements. Something was simple to be able to follow and creates the right behaviours from our drivers using our assets. They're definitely going to have the efficiencies to get the right journeys done, and also be quicker and enabled to do the journeys they have to do. And then we see our labour costs are being reduced as well, because we're not putting too much of a workforce into the administration of the process. It's actually very well self-managed. Well, that's it for my presentation there, I guess. So is there any questions, gentlemen, that you'd like to ask me about what's going on with our systems?
Yeah, Terry, obviously great to hear how a company like Easternwell has actually gone through the transition of manual to paper-based. Just wondering, as you change through the technology, what were some of the barriers that you or an organisation like yours would face in adopting that or overcoming those technology barriers from your workforce?
Yeah, thanks. Well, I guess we've always had some sort of reservations in our workforce. Our workforce is a range of age groups, and there's definitely some challenges there with everyone having connections to a smartphone, everyone having connections while they're actually using their smartphone throughout our remote areas. There's always been that little bit of reluctance to a change in a system and a process that exists within any business when they're trying to put a process in place. So I guess the majority of our people now, and very quickly after we instigated this 5 years ago, got on board with having a smartphone as part of their normal, something they carry around with themselves. And I guess we got used to using apps over that time as well. So even the older generation have become quite adept at using smartphones and apps nowadays. For those who have found it a little bit more difficult, we spent some one-on-one time with them, and it was easily picked up by them. Once we actually got into showing them how it actually works, and the fear was sort of taken away from them, they're very easily got on board with having something in their hands they could actually use.
So what would you say, Terry, would be the biggest takeaway of utilising sort of technology for your business?
Well, the biggest takeaway we've got out of this, I think, is that that there's the ability for us to automate and streamline our processes. I guess it made absolute perfect sense at the time when we were looking at putting a risk assessment process in place to design that risk assessment, to ask a few questions. And to go to a paper-based system, when we looked at that, which is what every system, every company would normally do, is create a paper-based system or something like that, something that's easily and manageable on one location. And we looked at it, how that would be applied across many locations across Australia, and how we would keep an eye on that system itself. And I guess there was not an easy fix to that. There was no way for us to really see the process being implemented, see how effective it's been, or how much it's being complied to across the board. And by doing it online, we've got a track of that data in one location, easily, readily available to us at our fingertips here from our head office in Toowoomba. I can see what's happening across Australia. So yeah, it's I guess using that technology really gave us the ability to see that system in its entirety being utilised quickly, easily, and for the person using the system on the other end, I mean, it was also a simple process for them as well to become accustomed to.
In regards to the integration between something like a JESI and a Fleet Complete or GeoTab type RVMS product, how do you really see the adoption of that? Like, is that bringing two different parts of the business together to own a product, or is it typically IVMS has been owned by, I guess, the fleet guys, and JESI's come under safety operations? Where do you see that now fitting within the organisation?
Yeah, thanks. Really great question, because I guess for a few years now we've been looking at comparing the two models and seeing what we can see out of it. So comparing two sets of data, one which gave us great information about our asset and our vehicles, and one which gave us great information about our other asset, which is our people driving. So by combining the two, we can see those journeys that are being done. We can see some of those improvements that are happening with our drivers and our vehicles being utilised. We can see them in comparison to each other. We can use that data set then against each other to figure out where the next range of improvements might come from. But we can also see that behaviour of those drivers will have more real-time data, because the in-vehicle monitoring system is quite, I guess, quite attuned to the vehicle itself. So it's giving direct feedback. It can give direct feedback at the time when you're actually driving. So for us to be able to combine the two, and even if it was at the end state for us would be the ability for us to put something like the vehicle monitoring system rules and processes against the risk assessment that we've conducted with the driver, so that if there is something that concerns us within the risk profile, that journey, and we have to put a new rule in place, that they might be able to find a way for that feedback through the IVMS and give that feedback directly back to the driver as the journey is being undertaken.
Terry, you talked in depth around the return on investment that these solutions have provided Easternwell. Just maybe talk about the initially implementing technology like this. The cost of that can be a bit of a deterrent. What were some of the initial concerns, and how did you justify it internally to get this up and running?
Look, you can always say this as a company, and something that we actually stand by, but there's never a cost to safety when it comes to something like this, and the duty of care we're showing to our drivers. The position we were in, the reason why we started this process, having a vehicle overturned and one of our drivers, put into that situation, which thankfully did not incur any great injuries. But we never want to be in that situation again. So that's the first part. Secondly, there is a return on investment, because what we've done with implementing a system like this is we created a system that created better driving behaviours. By having our drivers in the field understanding their journeys better, they're making good choices about what journeys need to be taken and what ones don't. And there you're finding yourselves with that sort of optimization of their working time that they're in the field. They're not taking unnecessary journeys. They are utilising the time they have better. So the return on investments in the productivity and the outcome you get from the worker. Because while we do some driving, it's not 100% of what we do for most of my employees. I guess it's always good to say things like, the asset itself is actually a little bit better run. So our drivers probably drive a little bit kinder to the vehicle, to the asset, improving its lifespan. So I'm really excited to see how the two of these, when we've got these two pieces together, working together with JESI, Journey Management, and with Fleet Complete, when those two pieces are coming together and how we can use that data then to see that asset lifespan really improve. That's part that's really exciting to me in the future.
I think that's probably good enough. I've only got one more question. That's who's going to win out of Port Adelaide and Richmond?
Being that I'm a Queenslander, I don't have a team in that.
That's all right. Richmond's a Queensland team at the moment. So, Michael, I think we might just throw it over to you as a final close. And
Sure.
Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. Look, just wanted to thank Joe and Terry for their time today, and also Kathy from JESI and Sarah from my team helping to put this together. Also for Terry, just thanks for devoting your time and sharing your valuable insights for the group. That was thank you very much for that. Just to all the attendees as well, just I hope you've enjoyed the session and have really gained some insights and taken some value back to your businesses. So I hope you enjoyed the session. For any further questions, please contact your JESI contact or your Fleet Complete contact. And just want to thank everyone and have a great day. Thank you.